Hey everyone, and welcome back to Daily Tuition. 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 This is the live stream to understand what is async await of JavaScript. So in this course, in this live stream, we'll be look at JavaScript async await and a new way of making JavaScript asynchronous. So when promises were introduced in ECMAScript 2017 or ECMAScript 2015, uh, sorry, in ECMAScript 2015, they were meant to be solve a problem with asynchronous code, and they did. But over the 2 years that separated ECMAScript 15 and ECMAScript 2017, it was clear that promises could not be the ultimate solution. Promises could not be the ultimate solution. For that, in ECMAScript 8 introduced async await. Async await functions a new addition in ECMAScript 17, or you can say in ECMAScript 8. It helps us to more in allowing us it helps us even more in allowing us to write a completely synchronous looking code while performing asynchronous tasks behind the scene. To understand async await, we need to first understand what is event loop and promises. So we will look at how async await solve the problem we have with event loop and promises. So let's first understand what is event loop. Event loop are one of the most important aspects of JavaScript. JavaScript, as you all know, JavaScript is single threaded programming language, which means that only one task can run at a time. It has call stack and all the code is executed inside this call stack. This call stack executes the code one by one without blocking the other function in the stack. The problem comes in when one of the function blocks the stack or executes after a second. In this case, the the call stack execute the rest of the functions and run the functions that takes time to execute. Let's look at how this practically works. So let's suppose that inside this main.js file, let's suppose if I have console.log message, and inside this, if I say first, let me duplicate this two more times like this, and let me change these messages. If I say here timeout, and this became final. If I save the changes, I'm going to get the result what I want. It will print first timeout and then we have the final console.log message. This will run the call stack from top to bottom as it does. But this is what the synchronous code. So this is what we call the asynchronous code. But this is what we call the synchronous code. This will add problem when one of the statement takes time to execute. To simulate this, we can use set timeout. To simulate to simulate this is what we call the synchronous call. And this will add problem when one of the statement takes time to execute. So let's suppose this console.log takes time to execute. In that case, we have a problem in the code. In that case, we get a problem in the code. So let's suppose that we simulate the problem. So let's suppose if I add the use so let's suppose if I add use let's suppose if I add set timeout inside this console.log. So if I say here if I say here set timeout and call the callback function as a first argument and then pass here the millisecond to execute this callback function. So if I specify here 1000 to mimic the delay, and if I specify here 1 second delay and then console.log a message timeout, save the changes, then you will see I'm going to get first and the final console message right here. But after 1 second, I'm going to get this timeout. This is because I add some delay to this console.log message. So this will add a problem when you have your UI depends on your backend data. So this will add problem, right? So this will add a problem in your code when you have your backend data, front end data depends on the backend. So we can consider this as, so let's create a simple example to store the order. Now let's solve this problem by creating a new example. Let's suppose that I have a constant variable. Let's suppose that you have a constant variable like this. This is a type of array of object. Inside this array of object, you have two objects with different properties: ID, item, price, and so on. So you have all these properties inside this object, and you want to insert one more order inside this array. So you create here a function. So you're simply going to say here function, and then specify here get movies. The name of the function is get movies, and we specify here set timeout. Now the set timeout function is going to add some delay in this function so we can mimic the API request. So here I'm going to say set a timeout and add some delay here. So I'm going to pass here 1000 to indicate this is the 1 second delay, to indicate this is the 1 second. 1000 is equal to 1 second. So we pass here 1000 millisecond, and then I'm going to say here order dot map, and then I'm simply going to specify here a callback function like this, and we also need to specify here an argument. So we pass here product, and we can pass, or you can say we can call this argument right here using console.log and say product.item. So I'm just going to access the name of all these items inside this get movies. You can change this name if you want. I can say here get order, and if I save the changes, I'm going to get all these orders inside my console, but after 1 second. But right now it's not going to print anything because we didn't call this get order yet. So we just call it. So let me just call this. When I save the changes, I'm going to get almond and pecans. So you can see I'm going to get the result inside my console. Now let's suppose I want to insert value inside this order, but after 2 seconds. It means I want to execute a function after 2 seconds and insert a value inside this order. That in JavaScript, that doesn't matter how much time it will take to execute to insert order inside a function or inside a database, but it always depends on the backend service. But let's suppose it takes 2 seconds to insert data in the backend database. So let's suppose if I say here function create movies, and I'm going to say set timeout, and I'm going to call here a callback function, something like this, and then say here 2000. This indicates this is the 2 second millis. Now as a second argument, we specify here 2000. This indicates that millisecond to execute this set timeout. So after 2 seconds, I'm going to execute this set timeout function, and this will call some delay inside this create movies, and I'm going to simply going to say here order dot push, and I'm going to push some data. So let me just pass some data here. So if I say here ID 3 with item property, if you want, you can specify any property here, that's on you, and I'm going to say here bread. So this is just a simple data I wanted to push inside this order array. And just for that, let me just call this create movies right down here. When I save the changes, you can see I'm not going to get this bread item as a response inside this console. The reason behind this is this function executes after 2 seconds, and we have the result in 1 second. This will not print the third array under order because it's take time to insert in the database. So this is where we can use promises or callbacks. So to solve this, we can use promises. So let's suppose that if you wrap this function in the promise. So let's suppose if I call here a function as an argument, and we call that function right inside this set timeout, something like this. Make sure the function name is exactly same, and just out of that, once we have that function, we're going to call this create movies as a parameter, or you can say as an argument to this get order. And now when I say this is, it's going to call that function after 1 second. But it's something went wrong. Let me just check that. Oops, I think I misspelled something here. Yeah, I just misspelled this. Instead of creating a callback function, I can wrap that in the promises.